Hi, my name is Bill Hearn and I'm making this video to give you some hints on how to play 𝑺𝒑𝒐𝒌𝒖𝒍𝒆, a Halloween piece from my book 101 Easy Ukulele Solos, published by Mel Bay. To play 𝒑𝒑𝒐𝒌𝒖𝒍𝒆 you'll need to tune the second or E string down a half step to E flat. If you'd like a little longer explanation, keep watching as the video goes through this tuning step by step. Okay, if you're going to play any of the pieces in drop E flat tuning on your ukulele or your ukulele, the first thing you want to do is to move it from standard tuning to drop E flat tuning. And here's how to do that. I've got the tuner where you can see it. It mostly will react to me plucking the strings, but every now and then will probably react to my voice. So ignore those. Turn it on. The first string, the bottom one, when you pluck it, should read A on the tuner if you're in standard tuning. The second string should read E. As you can see right now, that's the tiniest bit flat. We'll fix it. The third string should read C. The fourth string should read G. Alright, if you got all of those centered, you're pretty well tuned in standard tuning. To move to drop E flat tuning, what you want to do is to play the second string, which will read E, and you're going to move it till it says E flat or D sharp on most tuners. You're going to loosen it. Now it's D sharp, but a little too high. Now it's a little too low, which you probably want to do. It'll hold better if you make it a little too low. Centered on D sharp. Okay, it flashed E for a second just when I took off, and now it's reacting to my voice, but don't pay attention to that. Here's what your pitches will be if you play the strings from top to bottom. And from first string to fourth string. And all the open strings will sound like this. An appropriately spooky sound for pieces in minor or for 𝒑𝒐𝒌𝒖𝒍𝒆. Okay, once you've retuned your ukulele from standard tuning to drop E flat, and the way to do that if you skipped that part of the video is tune the second or E string down a half step to E flat. You might want to check it one more time and see if it sounds like this. I'm playing what looks like a C chord, but in this new tuning it's now a C minor chord. Nice spooky sound for a Halloween piece. To play the first page you only need to learn 4 riffs or licks or whatever you want to call them, little musical passages. And they go like this. Here's the first one. So that's riff 1. Here's how you play it. You're going to do a hammer-on the third string from fret 0 to fret 3. Then you're going to play 4 open string notes. And I wouldn't do that all with your thumb. You're going to have a hard time doing that fast enough. I'd alternate between the thumb and the index, or you can throw the middle finger in there also. And to finish off riff 1, you're going to need to do a pull-off from the 3rd fret to the open string. And if you don't know how to do a hammer-on or a pull-off, you might check some earlier pieces in my book that explain how to do that and use hammer-ons and pull-offs. Okay, so here's riff 1 all at once. that's riff 1. Riff 2, riff 3, and riff 4 are all kind of similar. They're all going to be in a rhythmic group of 3 notes, then 2 notes, then 3 notes. And all that's going to change is what frets you're playing on the first string. So for riff 2, you're going to play a group of 3 notes with the second fret fretted on the first string, then a group of 2 notes, second fret again, and then a group of 3 notes with the 5th fret fretted. Put it together, it sounds like this. And there's 2 ways to notate that. I would have liked to notate it in the book in a group of 3, a group of 2, and then a group of 3. But some musicians see that and see even 8th notes, which is the way it's supposed to be. And some musicians tend to see it as triplets. The editors were worried that it would be seen as triplets. So the supposedly correct way to put it together is to do 2 groups of 4 notes, even though it really doesn't sound like that. It sounds like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Sounds like that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now here's the next riff, riff 3. All you're going to do is do exactly the same thing in the right hand, but change what frets you're going on the first string. So you're going to fret at the 3rd fret, the 3rd fret, and then the 2nd fret. And this will sound like this. Group of 3, a group of 2, and then a group of 3. And that's the riff 3. The 4th riff, once again, you're going to do exactly the same thing, but just change what frets you're at. So we're going to go 2, 2, 0, like this. And here's the whole first page. I'm just going to play it a little slower than usual, just so you can give it a good listen. It goes like this. All the first page is those 4 riffs or licks or whatever you want to call them. So that's the first page of 𝒑𝒐𝒌𝒖𝒍𝒆, played a little bit slower. Okay, next I'm going to go through some tricks on playing the strummed portion of 𝒑𝒑𝒌𝒖𝒍𝒆. And besides some strumming tricks, you're going to need to know about playing harmonics and something called chucks. You may have done harmonics before. It's when you touch the string very lightly and you get a bell-like sound. These are easiest to get on a ukulele at the 12th fret because it's so high-pitched. The other 2 are kind of tricky. But at the 12th fret on this piece, I'm strumming all the strings with a harmonic. And you get a bell-like sound. And I'll give you a little better explanation of that. What you want to do is actually to touch the string very, very lightly, almost as if it's tied to an alarm bell. And don't move it down to the fret at all. You're not trying to fret it, you're just touching it. And you want to touch it right over the fret, like you're hiding it from the audience. After you pluck the string, you can take your finger off and that'll make it ring a little better. But you want to take your left hand finger off after you've plucked or strummed. For the ones at the 12th fret, I like to lay my little finger flat across all the strings. Is the easiest one if you're not used to the little finger. Problem is some of the other fingers your hand runs into the ukulele at the 12th fret, so that's why I like the little finger here. And you get this weird open string chord in this tuning if you do that. So that's a harmonic. And you'll know you've got it when you can move your hand away and it still keeps on happening. A chuck is when you play a chord, and these are most obvious when you play, say, a chord where you hit all the strings, and you take your fingers off, you take the pressure off, but you keep on strumming and you get a kind of percussive sound with the strum. In this piece, we chuck some of the strings, but the open strings keep on going on here. And with the strumming and the chucks here, I've written down some kind of cool jazzy rhythms, but if you have your own cool jazzy rhythms you like to do with these chords or something like this, feel free to play around with the piece. If I was playing this in public, I might end up with a slightly different jazzy rhythm every time. But I'm going to go through the ones that are on the page. So with the chucking, what you want to do is to strum as usual, but release the pressure in the left hand, and that'll get a percussive sound out of whichever strings you're holding down. So here's the 4 riffs you need to play the strumming part. The first riff has a strummed rhythm with some that goes like this, and then a hammer-on part. And that's the first line of the piece, in the first line of the piece. The first rhythm is, if it's written correctly, I think it's actually a little harder to read. I like to write it in a group of 3/8 notes, another group of 3/8 notes, and a group of 2/8 notes. So you might count it kind of like this. 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And there it is twice. So if you play that whole first part together, it sounds like this. And the second group is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you do a hammer on. This is another trick with 2 fingers at once. The first and the third fingers come down and hammer on like this. So that's one strum, and the second part sounded by the left hand. Put that riff all together, it sounds like this. The second part, you're going to do the open strings, but in that same rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And I like to strum with my index finger. I know some people can do that with the thumb or even with the pick. I kind of like to go back and forth with my index finger. After you've done that rhythm, you're going to hit the harmonics at the 12th fret one time and then do kind of the same rhythm. Put that all together, it sounds like this. The next riff you have to do is once again this first E flat chord, just with these 2 fingers. But what we're going to do is to do a strum and then 2 chucked strums. So I lifted the pressure on my left hand on the second 2 strums there in a group of 3. And we're going to put, the way I wrote it is I have 4 groups of 3 there. Just keep the strumming going back and forth. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 2 groups of 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, and the last one's actually a quarter note, but it feels like a group of 2. So put that all together, it sounds like this. However, if you make up your own jazzy rhythm and it sounds good to you, it'll probably work for the piece. I played this several different ways before I settled on that one. So here's the third riff. And it kind of gets a little bit of its rhythmic drive by the chucks. The last part, we're going to do our 3 plus 3 plus 2 rhythm again, but I'm going to do a really strange sounding chord, which is the sort of thing you only get away with in a Halloween piece, and then it resolves to something a little, well, it doesn't ever quit being entirely spooky there. It's back to our spooky chord, once again in groups of 3 and 2. So and some chucks in the first one. The 2 and 3 in the groups of 3 are chucked. And the 2 in the group of 2. And then I just go ahead and strum it. You could change that if you wanted to and chuck all the way through. Sounds a little different. But this is a good part to play freely. If you want to do exactly what I've got, that's fine. If you want to make up some of your own strumming, kind of keep the same chords, it'll sound like the same piece. Just like Jimi Hendrix plays Purple Haze differently every time he does it. Well, he did play. Sorry, Jimmy. He did play it that way. And it's cool every time he does it, but it's never exactly the same. So that's fine for the strumming portion of this piece too. So there's the strums in 𝒑𝒐𝒌𝒖𝒍𝒆. And I'll do one more slide and get to how to play the very ending. Okay, now we're going to finish off 𝒑𝒐𝒌𝒖𝒍𝒆, the very last part. Really, the only confusing thing about this is where the music goes to 12/8. It looks like you're going to do something complicated rhythmically, but not really. What you do is you keep the notes coming at exactly the same speed. It's just that they don't add up to 4 in the same way. We've got 4 groups of 3, so it sounds like this. And you do it twice. So that's the very end. One more time. So 2, 0, 2, 0, 2, 0, 2, 0, and then a C chord, and then hit that. And so the end, the very end, sounds like this. And that's the end of the piece. Okay, now, right after you strum, what you do is you basically just play the beginning parts again. But we don't play as much of it. You play the opening, but you only play the first 8 measures, and then you repeat the 3-3-2. So you do the first lick, and you also are using the second lick, and then the third lick, and it happens twice in a row, and then we go straight into the ending. So there's so here's what the whole end part sounds like, and this is how we end the piece. It goes like this. You start by reprising some of the beginning.